Guys, I got this little fig tree from Lowe's, so today I'm going to be planting it. This is a Chicago hardy fig. I had been looking for this type of fig, and lo and behold, I found it at Lowe's. And it's important to note that the reason I only have one tree is because this tree is self-pollinating. You only need to plant one. This is supposed to be the hardiest fig tree, growing in zones 5 through 10. Now, I am in zone 6A, so this is basically the only fig tree I know of that will thrive here. There was another type of fig in the store meant for zones 6 through 10, but I really didn't want to push it, and I have heard good things about this fig plant. If you are wondering what your growing zone is for your area, I recommend you do a quick Google search, and you should be able to find that out pretty easily. It's good to know before you plant this tree, even if it is sold in the big box store. Sometimes they sell tree varieties that are just on the edge of surviving in that area. They'll sell anything that has some potential, so that way you know what you're dealing with. Say if I would have bought that fig tree that could only survive down to zone 6, and I am just on the border edge of zone 6, I would know that I would be taking a big risk in the survival of that fig tree. So it's good to know your zones. That's super important for tree planting. For this tree, if you are in zone 5, this tree will likely not die, but it will sort of die back each year. The growth from the warm seasons will likely die off during the extreme cold of the winter, but don't worry, new growth in the spring will start from the bottom of the tree. So it will likely not get as big as, say, if you lived in a higher, warmer zone, but it is still possible to grow this tree in zone 5. For this little plant, I am assuming it is just a cutting. I need to soak it in water for a few minutes before planting, so I will just plop it in this water right here. This tree's average size is supposed to be 10 to 12 feet, but beware, it can get much bigger than that. And they tend to grow quite bushy and low to the ground. They can be as wide as they are tall, so make sure you give it some space. You can also grow these in containers, but that adds a few more growing challenges, so I won't get into container growing in this video. Make sure you dig a nice large hole, even compared to the small root system of this tree. This is so the soil around the roots is loose and it's easier for the young roots to spread. This is a very fast growing tree, especially if the new growth from the previous year doesn't die during the winter. This tree grows tall quickly. It's supposed to be pretty easy to grow, so a good beginner fruit tree. It quickly gives you high yields of delicious brown to purple colored figs from July all the way until the first frost, so you can expect a long picking season for this tree. It can even produce fruit as soon as the first year you plant it, so I will be sure to update you guys if this little tree is magically able to already produce fruit at the end of the summer, while my much bigger apple tree I just planted probably will take years and years. This tree can be planted in both full sun or partial shade. Full sun is recommended for the fastest growth, but if your property is a little shady like mine is, don't be afraid to put it in a slightly shady area. Just make sure it gets some sunlight. It's best to plant this tree in early spring or late fall in well-drained soil. Now, I am planting this a little early, and since it already has some leaves on it because it was indoors in the store, I will have to cover it for a few of the nights over the next couple weeks that are going to get a little below freezing so that this new growth isn't damaged. Make sure you also kind of hit the sides of your hole with your shovel or some other hard device so that you loosen the sides of the hole and the roots are able to spread even better. Okay, that's definitely a big enough hole. The roots will have plenty of room to spread. You can mix in a little compost here, but not too much so that the roots will be encouraged to spread out and not just stay in the amended soil area. I'm not putting any amendments in here. I'm just letting it get used to this sandy, loamy clay soil that I've got out here. Let me fill in the hole with a little bit of dirt because that's definitely too deep for this tree, but the loose soil will be helpful to it. Let me look at the roots here. These roots aren't too bad. You want to make sure if your roots are spiraling a little bit, it looks like some of mine are, that you kind of spread them out very carefully. That way your roots don't continue to grow in a spiral. But I'm just going to kind of spread out my roots a little bit. Put it in right there. It's so tiny. Give it a nice water before you fill it in with dirt so that the water gets straight to the roots, and then let that drain a little bit before you put in more soil, and make sure you pack in the soil really good so that it doesn't sink. And another essential after you've finished putting down the soil and made sure it's compacted pretty well there, you want to mulch around the tree in a sort of donut formation. You can use whatever you want for mulch. I'm going to use some leaf mulch. You can use grass clippings, wood chips, shredded paper. You can cut out a circle of cardboard around the tree, whatever you have lying around. So I'm just going to put this leaf mulch in kind of a donut shape here, being careful not to mulch right around the stem. We don't want this mulch keeping it constantly moist around the stem. We want some room for air circulation there, and I'm just going to water it in a little more. Mulch will also protect the plant during the winter. So if you do live in one of the colder zones, you want to make sure there is some heavy mulch on it before it gets cold. I've even heard of people covering their trees with a circle of hay bales. There are a ton of different ways to protect your tree if you don't want it to die back that much during the winter time. So you'll have to do some research on that if you're interested in that. You want to make sure you keep the soil moist until the plant is well established. And when fruit does start to develop, I've heard that when you see the fruit developing, it's harvestable as soon as 60 days after to 90 days after. So you want to harvest when the fruit is soft to the touch. And you'll probably get better at spotting what fruit is ripe the more fruit you pick and taste test from your tree. And there you have it, a nice little fig tree that will probably be huge by next year if the winter doesn't kill off the new growth. Well, I hope you learned a lot from this video, guys. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe. Goodbye.